as you can see, that's been my passion for the last 4 years, and before that it was the mayor's parrot, where I did my PhD in Okavango Delta. There's the Cape Parrot. Upoli, or Izikunene, as it's known in the villages in Hoggs area and Amatolas. Your average poly wants a cracker. This Upoli wants a forest. And we're trying to set about doing that for it. It's not going to take 5 or 10 years or 25 years. It's going to be multi-generational. It's going to be 100 years before these forests have been rebuilt. You have to press this?
Yes.
I'll use this one here. Okay. Cape Parrots, obviously we all know they're only found here. They're endemic to South Africa. There's between 1,000 and 1,500 remaining in the wild. We've just got to the point, according to our research, that there are probably more in captivity now than there are in the wild. And a very small proportion of those are on record and legal with permits. But as you can see, a beautiful bird, beautiful golden head, beautiful iridescent green body when they're healthy, green and gold like our sporting teams in South Africa. A real part of our natural heritage, our national parrot I like to call it, and something we really should protect as closely as possible. The affection these birds show each other, the breeding pairs, you can see it's a long-lived bird that's trying to engineer a relationship over many, many years. Aviators. I've never studied or researched or seen a bird that enjoys flying more. That's where all their socializing happens. It's deafening to listen to them in large flocks over our Cape Parrot sanctuary, where we get up to 300 in single flocks over there, communicating with each other. It's almost like a collective consciousness, deciding whether it's safe to land or to feed in a specific area. Just amazing, amazing birds that captured my imagination. Now, they're not just up in the forests, they're in towns, they're in people's gardens, they're feeding in pecan trees, and bird baths, swimming pools. This puts them in danger of capture, being taken out by dogs. Just puts them at the kind of interface of human-animal conflict. Just quickly, the talk is going to be a bit rushed. I want to pack everything in. I've only got 20 minutes. These are 5-poicephalus parrots. Top two are the ones that we're interested in, the Cape Parrot and the grey-headed parrot. There's a team in Pretoria and KwaZulu-Natal that are working on separating these species. At the moment, these three are included together as a single species, subspecies of each other. Preliminary work shows that these two are more closely related to each other than they are to the Cape Parrot. Morphology and ecology separate them completely. Distribution separates them. They are separate species, and we will sort that out in the next year or two. Now, the Cape Parrot project focused on answering 3 big questions: whether food resource abundance was a problem, whether the beak and feather disease was a problem, or a local extinction threat for the species, and whether nest sites were limiting. And very quickly we realized that all 3 of those answers were yes, yes, and yes. That was within our first year. Now, our journey began in 2008, in November. A friend of mine, Graham Russell, sent me this photograph of the Cape Parrot. He thought it was comical, a bald parrot in his aperture. It made us worry. I established the Cape Parrot Forum, which is now the Cape Parrot Project group on Facebook, with 5,000 members. Within the network, by March, we started receiving photographs. We received 30 within 2 weeks of people in King Williamstown finding sick birds. This is the guy who cursed my bird, saw this bird. And then Roderick Bouillon started noticing more and more sick ones, and these photos started flooding in. Very, very uncomfortable when you're watching them. They're picking the feathers off, the skin's going necrotic, the beak is falling apart, they're losing weight, they usually sit in one single tree and don't really move. I'll show you a picture of one that's actually still in a tree right now as we speak. We lost him or her yesterday. We're not trying to find her. Apparently kids were climbing into the tree to pick the fruits that this bird was living off, and she flushed out, unfortunately. She's been there for 3 months. But really, really shocking. These ones, we've tried to catch them. We've seen 5 of them like this. All no feathers, just flat feathers. They can fly, and you'll spend 2-3 days trying to catch that single bird, and you can't. We just have failed to save one that's in this kind of condition.
Sorry, Steve. Could you step back between slides?
Yeah. I was just
Sorry,
gonna,
thanks.
can I? Working on. Okay. Now, what we also started noticing was pied Cape Parrots with yellow feathers. A lot of them. I mean, and it's variable each year. Sometimes it's up to 20-30% of them, and sometimes you can hardly find them. The theory is it's either an immune reaction to beak and feather disease, or more likely a genetic problem. These pied ones are appearing more and more and more. It can be one patch of feathers, or it could be most of the body covered in these yellow feathers. We have seen it in the eco parakeet with PVFD, with this beak and feather disease, that these yellow feathers do appear. Now, what we said about doing was to capture them. We got permits, and we did that. I didn't like doing that. From a PhD, I didn't touch a parrot. Now I had to cross that boundary and start touching We started catching them. We caught 16 in the first year. Half of them were infected with beak and feather disease. Now you can see over here, that is the PCRs. That's a kind of rock-solid result on the blood and feather samples. These green ones are observations in the field. And our research with the PCRs and the qPCRs has shown that our diagnostics are perfect. Every single one that we thought was infected was infected. And even our rating system out of 5 matched the amount of virus in their blood. So it's quite a good measure. And that's why in 2012 we decided not to bother these poor birds and purely go on observational stuff out in the field, which did demonstrate the epidemic is not over. I mean, look at 2011. There was a drought here in 2010. At the end of the summer season, it became very, very bad. A hailstorm came in January and knocked all the flowers off our pekin nut trees. So no pekins that year. The parrots then by March were all starving, and we had a 100% infection rate in over 40 birds that we sampled. So every single one. And now we are sampling the sick, because our technique is we put a net in between the trees, allow them to start feeding there, and it's really tricky to get them to feed there. You've got to put cars, dummy nets. They know exactly what we look like. We dress as farm labourers. Eventually get them to go there, gather themselves in a big flock and start feeding, and then you approach the tree. And as you approach, the healthier ones will flush straight up. They fly straight into the sky. The sicker ones are the ones that go down. You need to pick up momentum before they fly. They go into the nets. So 100% is not the whole population. The whole population, it's still shocking, it's close to 80% of birds with signs. Black blotches, feather loss, lethargic, problems with the beak. We have gone a long way to identifying this virus, looking at its phenology. And we have now, based on our research, established that it's not the virus, it's the context. The virus is the same, it's endemic, it's been there for thousands of years, it's evolved with the species, it's now become dysfunctional because the species are eating different foods, they're losing body condition, and literally between January and March each year they're starving. That's a population of parrots that were in captivity, they all died of a budgerigar virus, that's why that's an outlier there. Now, dead parrots. We wanted this to stop happening. We were finding them 2 weeks, 2-3 weeks, months after they died, under roosts and in the pekin orchard. Lots and lots came in. We then went out and started a media campaign, not just in things like birds and birding, but in the local papers, the Bugle in the King Williamstown. We were putting out flyers in shopping centres, at churches and Sundays, that kind of thing. And as a result, we got 12 parrots handed in. King came in, this is Alice. She was in really terrible condition. I mean, I did not expect her to survive. 12 came in, 8 died overnight. 4 we managed to save in incubators, and over 6 months released them back into the wild, as you saw. But she was on death's door, but she survived. She soldiered through. There she is on the side here, just before release. Really picked up condition, and the condition pickup happened with yellowwood fruits. We fed them the science diet that we could dream for them. It didn't work. You gave them yellowwoods and suddenly perked up, happier, starting to pick up condition. They still had the science diet there, but they would focus on yellowwoods. They recognized exactly what it was. An amazing effect on them. I said in the video that we got rid of the virus. We didn't. The virus just went very, very to low levels, and their condition picked up enough for us to release them, under the assumption that the majority of the population has been exposed to the same virus already. And they were under quarantine conditions the whole time they were with us. Now, this is the bird, called her Lady Grey. She's been sitting in a tree for 3 months in King Williamstown. A friend of mine, Roderick Bouillon, he's been with her most days. He was not with her 2 days ago and came back and she was gone. But he had seen kids on the street gathering fruits out of those trees, and they flushed them, obviously. But what's the problem? It's obviously the forests, as I said. They've pretty much been destroyed. We do a lot of aerial surveys. We're going on one next week in Hoggs. We try and identify forest patches that need our work, that need our conservation attention. We look for groves and emergent yellowwoods rising above the rest of them. We've also used old aerial photographs from 1938 and 1975, looking at the condition of the forests back then. And that's post the massive deforestation that did happen in the areas. That image you saw before was a lot of emergent yellowwoods here. Our counts have between 20% less up to 80% less in the number of emergent yellowwoods you find in those forests. Now, we've identified 24 different sites in the aerial surveys that we're going to move on to. We're about here now in our planting. And I'll show you a map of our planting sites just now. This is a UNEP report from 2008. They identified the Ambotola forests as the most important indigenous forests in South Africa, noting that 50% are run by the government, by DAF, and only 1.5% are actually protected. At the moment, we've submitted applications for 2 forest reserves there. Amazing, amazing sites that for some reason were untouched, probably because they're inaccessible. They have to take a 4x4 trail to get to these things. There's a corridor between the two of them that we want to link the two to each other. Not so much for the parrots, but for the trees. Just last year, a harvester went in there and harvested 200 to 300-year-old yellowwood trees. Totally legal for him to do that, but not in that forest. Not again. It hadn't happened before, and he saw an opportunity out there. Now this is what the parrot should be feeding on, yellowwood fruits. This is us in 2009. Myself and a French filmmaker actually filmed and photographed them feeding on yellowwoods. The next year we found them after the breeding season, lots of babies around. So we correlated this with the babies. For the next 3 years we did not see them feeding on yellowwoods whatsoever. We tried to call them in once it worked where they came in to feed on them, but otherwise nothing. This year, just 2 months ago, we found them on the yellowwoods, good numbers. First time in 3 years, first time those yellowwood trees have had yellowwood fruits in them. The ones that they know, so they've started feeding on them, which we hope means babies next year. This is the wild plum, Harpyphilum caffrum. Now the King Williamstown Town Council planted the whole town up with these things. So now that is a massive food resource for the parrots for up to 9 months of the year. If the plums don't last all the way through to March, that's when they starve and the disease takes over. This year the plums, because of the rains, have done well and the birds are happily eating still. This is the wild olive, Olea Europea africana. This is also a very important food item that could supplement the pecan nuts, which they do focus on now. Now today we find them, you saw jacaranda pod there, these syringas. They feed on plums from Japan, cherries from Mexico, pecans from America. Their diet is very, very, very cosmopolitan and international now. From a specialist bird that focused on yellowwoods to feeding on pretty much anything they can find. A lot of the stuff you can see they don't like the taste of. Those jacarandas, they'll just pick it up and manipulate and drop it down. Now the pecan nuts, the most important food item for Cape parrots. 4, 5, 6 months of the year they'll be feeding on this. They will fly as far as Sedgefield, other side of in the Western Cape, to find these trees. Last year when we didn't have them in the Eastern Cape, they went and found them in Adelaide and faraway places, PE, Grahamstown, trying to find pecan nuts. Now pecan nuts come with tannins, especially when they've got this green shuck on it here. The tannins, this is one shuck, me de-shucking with my fingers. The parrots actually figured out how to take it off their beaks. They fly up into the eucalyptus trees after a drink of water, after feeding on pecan nuts, chew it about, it comes off their beaks. I took essential oils, eucalyptus, poured it onto a finger covered in these tannins, came off very, very quickly. To protect this resource, Fort Hare University, we're going to chop these trees down, we fenced them off to go to management. I'm just going to skip through a bit. Yeah. Now this is the community project we're running. This is with the Critical Ecosystems Partnership and the Wildlands Trust. Now this is one of our first villages that we started partnering with. You can see he's very, very happy to have us there. Now what we're doing is we're planting now, this is up until the end of next year, this is our plan. We are now, I'll show you how far we are, 25,000 of those indigenous trees in community-owned indigenous forest plots. These are next to the villages manage them and we incentivize them to do so by paying them every 6 months after an audit to tell them how well they've done. We're also planting 15,000 yellowwoods inside or around Afro-Montane forest patches. Now the 10,000 of these indigenous trees also in there. That's the first 50,000 up until December next year. We're also going to erect we've done 258 so far, 600 Cape Parrot nest boxes throughout the mountain range. We've slowed down on that now because we're looking at the use of the ones we've got up already. What works, what doesn't, before we put another 300 up. We are now also doing 25 long-term partnerships with the villages. That will result in 250 micro-nurseries. We've got 25 or 30 at the moment. These are small nurseries we set up for the communities to use. Forest reserves, as I said, we hope by 2023 to have planted 1 million trees. Our mission right now is to develop that capacity. Now, we find trees all over the place. We have some very good plots set up by the forestry department where we can harvest small seedlings from those plots. Those are trees they planted 40 years ago. This is one of our planting teams. This is the one at Hulla. This is one of our planting sites. We fence it off, put it next to the village, put 500 to 1,000 trees in there and ask the community to take care of them, keeping the livestock out, the fires, that kind of thing. We planted Fort Hare University, the Green Campus Initiative we started with them. 1,000 trees on campus now, students involved, ground staff involved. These are our planting sites in the Hoggs back. I can't go back now, but it says that we've planted 11,000 trees so far. 258 nest boxes are up. The nurseries are running. Our big nursery is running. We've now got a seed bank of about 150,000 seeds from white stinkwoods to yellowwoods, we've got it. And we are now at Fort Hare doing that. This is our building team. They build micro nurseries. It takes 1 day for 10 of them to be built up in a village. We then have Wongama, our community manager. He is 100% of the time in the community talking to people. He teaches them how to use it and the seriousness of what we do. We then stock it with 100 per micro nursery. She will then get a watering can and a schedule, and she takes care of them and takes insects off them. Once she's grown them up to 40 centimeters, over about 6 to 12 months, we buy them back for 10 rand each. It's 1,000 rand in their back pocket. So, I mean, you give it to one of these people, they're phoning their kids back in the city. Wow, look at this, what I'm involved in. We have to hoot before we come into the village because they want to start singing. We had 50-50 with us last 2-3 weeks ago, and it was a bonanza. Now there's a camera there. Really, really cool. But that's the whole point. This is conservation with communities, and that is the future. We're looking for young leaders to uplift them. This is one of our holding nurseries. They're the nest boxes, trying to avoid this happening more and more in the future. In the nest boxes, we're trying to control PBFD transmission to the youngsters. We have access to them in the nest box, and we can start to control that. So one more slide here. That's them building them. It's our nest boxes. That's all them put up. These are bee boxes. We use this to divert attention from our made bird box. These are tailor-made for bees. We put them up in September each year, and instantly all of them are taken out. I mean, occupied. Happened again last year. This is a forestation we're taking over. The department has given it to us on a long-term lease. We're refurbishing it. We're going to build a flight area over here, nurseries over there. Wonderful, wonderful site for the future of this project. For the next 25, 50, 100 years, we want to be there. See, it's got a lot of work, a lot of love needed, a lot of snares and stuff, and the beautiful forest surrounding it. We'll stop that and make it a wonderful place for Cape Parrots. These are our sponsors. Everyone signed on. It's our national parrot. Why wouldn't they? And very, very exciting times for the Cape Parrot, for our project, and for those communities most especially. We'd love to take this to other areas in the country, but we're going to be at least another 5 years in the Eastern Cape, establishing ourselves before we do take that jump. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks very much, Steve. Sorry to rush you.
No, it's my fault.
We've run out of time, so I think what we'll do is we'll go on to the next presentation, and if we've got time for questions at the end, we can do that.